Democrats that managed to win were ones that had strong individual brands. Not only Marie Goldkamp-Perez there in Washington, but Jared Golden in Maine looks like he's held on,
Hmm.
even as Trump carried that congressional district. But then, other Democrats that we didn't think were perhaps as in danger got swamped by sort of the tide. I think they're in Pennsylvania, which I heard you all talking about before with
Yep.
Matt Cartwright and Susan Wild in Pennsylvania losing both of those seats. But then, when I'm looking at the Senate map, someone like Tammy Baldwin managed to win very narrowly. Alyssa Slotkin, they both, I think, were able to run stronger in rural areas, not win those, but to do better. And I think that's coming with knowing the areas and that they had a unique brand sort of separate from the Democratic Party enough where they were able to convince voters to trust to vote for them, even as they voted for Trump.
In the Washington Post, I believe this morning, there's a fabulous article that Mr. Trump has power. Everyone agrees with that, but maybe less power to drive the House and Senate.
Mhm.
Where do you stand on that? I mean, I'm waiting for Charlie Cook to write one of his wonderful essays about this. Is it a landslide? Is it a power shift? Or do we overplay that right now?
Well, at least when I'm looking at the Senate, they have at least 53 seats right now, and I think that's probably where it's going to land. The AP is called Pennsylvania, so they flipped West Virginia, Ohio, and Montana, but those three were always the ones we expected were the most. So again, Republicans left seats on the table because for the first time, we've had multiple seats that split their tickets in the Trump era. With it, the races in Arizona and Nevada aren't called, but it looks like those are going to vote Democratic at the Senate level.
Right.
But heavily Republican at the presidential level. So this could have been much worse. That's my piece that I have out this morning in the table. And that's because Democrats were spending heavily. They managed to sort of ward off some of this. In Arizona, they had weaker candidates. So it could have been worse. And remember that much like I think this was sort of Democrats' worry if they only got to 52 or something, which they've got one more at least, it looks like, that Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski of Maine could wield overwhelming influence as the moderates within the GOP.
Right.
How they go about that could matter. But if Republicans have gained a few seats in the House, that we saw what that 4-seat majority did last time. But the last time Trump had a trifecta was when he came in 2017, and they weren't able to get everything passed. And it's just 2 years probably because we see typically that a president's party faces backlash in that regard. So, I think they're going to have to push through
Right.
tax cuts and renewing those tax cuts and anything that they want to do in this 2 years. But again, they have a little bit bigger majority in the House, but it's not huge. And again, if some of those
Right.
Republicans in California are reelected wins, that they could be sitting in still very heavily
Yeah.
Democratic areas, so they might not go along with the national party.